Can your resignation letter defeat your Colorado employment lawsuit? It is common in many Colorado jobs for employees to submit a resignation letter when leaving a job, but what happens when you submit a resignation letter and then sue the employer? Many workers may be surprised to find out their resignation letter may cause problems for a lawsuit against an employer for wrongful termination, employment discrimination, unpaid wages, or other labor and employment law claims. A resignation letter could also create problems for unemployment claims. Colorado workers should exercise caution when drafting a resignation letter to avoid complicating their lawsuits or unemployment claims. If you believe you may need to leave a job and sue your employer, then you should talk to a Colorado employment lawyer before giving your employer any resignation letter to avoid these problems. What is a resignation letter and why employees submit resignation letters? Resignation letters are at a minimum written notice to an employer of your intent to end the employment relationship. Often Colorado employers request 2-week notice of your intent to leave your job and for you to give notice in writing. Employers often promise to leave your status as eligible for rehire if you give this resignation letter. In some professions and some positions, it is expected that you will include within a resignation letter niceties about the company and your colleagues. Other workers write these types of resignation letters because they think they should. Generally, there is no duty for employees to notify an employer in Denver or other parts of Colorado of your intent to end the employment relationship. An employment contract may require notice, or an employer might give you some specific benefit for writing notice. However, Colorado labor and employment law does not require you to do so. To the extent that you may have a duty to give notice or want to receive a promised benefit of giving notice, you certainly do not have a legal obligation to make your employer feel good on the way out the door. How a resignation letter can cause problems for your federal or Colorado employment lawsuit. Let's say you decide one day work conditions are so terrible you have no choice but to quit, and then you sue the Colorado employer for wrongful termination or employment discrimination. Your lawsuit might seek relief under federal and Colorado employment law. You decide to give your employer a resignation letter that politely gives notice of your last day and thanks the employer for the opportunity and some other pleasantries. Let's say it says you are leaving to pursue other opportunities. The resignation letter does not mention the problems in the workplace or discrimination. Your resignation letter tells a very different story of your job and the conditions that led to you quitting your job from what your lawsuit alleges. Your wrongful termination claim necessarily has to allege that the work conditions were so unbearable that you had to leave, which effectively acted to termination your employment. This is called constructive discharge. If workplace conditions were so terrible, then why did you say something so different in your resignation letter? Why did you resign at a later date and continue to endure the punishing conditions? If the job was so bad, then why did you not mention that at all in your resignation letter? Why did you say you were leaving to pursue other opportunities and not because the workplace harassment was too much? Certainly, you can argue that you sent the letter to be polite or because you did not want to force yourself into an awkward confrontation on the way out the door. Maybe a jury believes that. But maybe a jury thinks if you had the ability to pause and give consideration to politeness, then maybe the workplace was not quite as bad as you allege. Another issue the employer's attorneys will undoubtedly raise is that you were blatantly dishonest in the resignation letter or dishonest in filing your lawsuit. Employers will use your resignation letter against you. Increasingly, employers find new ways to use resignation letters against former employees. You may also file for unemployment benefits on the basis that the workplace was intolerable, and employers will use your resignation letter as proof you said something different from the allegations in your unemployment claim. Employers in Colorado will use any evidence at their disposal to their benefit. Giving an employer a resignation letter just adds to the available evidence they can use against you. What should I put in a resignation letter? If you are leaving a job on unpleasant terms, then you should talk to a Denver employment lawyer if possible before leaving to get specific advice on how to quit your job. Generally, if you are leaving a job for unpleasant reasons, then you should give written notice of your departure but leave out any commentary about your job or the employer. When facing poor work conditions or problems on the job, you should talk to Colorado employment lawyers immediately about your job. Labor and employment law are complex areas of law, and legal answers can turn on minute details and complicated legal analysis. Experienced employment lawyers can discuss your situation and give you an answer specific to your situation.